Hello everybody, this is Mr. Ark again, back with an awesome online tutorial. That's right, today we're going to learn how to do asynchronous programming just with using FLTK. So before we did some network programming on the command line and we were able to send back and forth round robin. But a real chat program, you're able to chat with two people, and one person doesn't have to wait for the other person to send, and the person who sent can send again as many times as they want, and also they can send to each other simultaneously. So I'm going to show you how to do this in FLTK. In fact, in my opinion, I think the way that FLTK does this is brilliant because it lends itself to the event loop. So if you're wondering what the event loop is, if you can't remember, all FLTK, all GUI programs have an event loop that waits for you to do something, like click on a key or the mouse or some type of an event to occur. And when those events occur, well, then you usually program a callback function, and that callback function executes. So this is exactly the same mechanism we're going to use to do the network programming in FLTK. So let's go through it line by line. Here we go. Okay, so I'm importing a couple of things. You have already seen those before. This is how you're going to run the program. So it's going to use command line arguments. And notice here, I'm going to specify whether or not it's a server or a client. And that you'll see why that is important, because there's one line. Oh, by the way, before I continue any further, I got to make really clear I'm using UDP here, not TCP. Okay, so also, since we've already done object-oriented programming, that's what I'm using here. Okay, so I make a class called myWindow, and we're inheriting from FL window, and in the init function here to set things up, we're going to call init of the FL window a parent class. Now we're going to start. We're going to go begin, and we're going to add widgets. Now in this case, I'm only adding two widgets here. So this is an FL input widget so that I can type something in the FL widget like a message, and then a multi-browser. So if you're wondering what a multi-browser is, FL multi-browser, let's go back and take a look at what an FL multi-browser is. FL multi-browser, there it is. And so a multi-browser class is a subclass of FL browser which lets the user select any set of lines, and the user interface is, yeah, so on and so forth. Basically what it is, okay, is it's like think of it as a list of items in a box. So you can add lines, line by line, you can add lines in a big box of text. Okay, so it's line by line text, and each line you can add to it. You'll see what it looks like when we get to actually running the program. So right now it's just like any other widget: X, Y coordinates, width, and height. So that's it, just these two widgets. Now this is the widget, the input is the widget I'm going to actually type my message into. Now I know what you're thinking at this point. Mr. Ark, you're only showing us one of the two programs. Well, actually I'm showing you both. They're identical. This is the server program and this is the client program. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So right here we come down to line 16, and here is, so I felt like, you know what, it would be kind of redundant to add another button to say, you know, send the message. Usually when you're in a chat program, the way you send the message is basically by hitting enter. And so that's what I wanted to do. So I set the input widgets when attribute to FL when enter key. Now if you're wondering what that when is, take a look. I come down to, so basically I'm on widget here, right? I'm in the FLTK programming manual, and I go down to class reference A, and then I go down to widget, And in widget here it says when. Let's take a look at what when says. When is a set of bit flags used by subclasses of FL widget to decide when to do the callback. Now, these are actually they're hard-coded, predefined ones we can already use in enumerations. So if we go into enumerations and if we go down to FL when conditions, here they are. I want to use this one here. FL when enter key, do the callback when the user presses enter. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. If you hit enter, boom, I want the callback to be called. So I still have to create the callback's function name, and in this case I'm doing it on line 17 here. I'm saying it's going to be self.send callback. Okay, that's for input. In other words, when I hit enter after I type my message, I want that message to be sent. Okay, so let's come down here and take a look at the send function. Here it is. Remember, it's a callback, so it has to accept a widget. And remember, it's part of object-oriented programming. It's a function in the class, so it has to have self as the first argument. Then I grab the text that's in the input widget. It's the dot value, right? We've done that before. And then this is kind of cool, right? Is I say, all right, listen, if it's the server, then send to address. I take the text and I encode it, which I have to do, right? Because Python 3 we have to encode, decode. We can't send strings, we have to send binary data, and encode, decode provides that transformation for us. But right here, if you'll notice, I'm sending to address. But address doesn't exist yet. So that's why if it's the server, we have to receive data to get this piece of information, or else the server is not going to know where to send the information. So in other words, here's the rule. We run this program, but we specify server first. Server has to run first, but we, because server is listening, right? It's bound to that host and port on line 22. All right. So we don't bind if it's the client, but if it's the client, then we don't need this. We're just going to send to host and port. Also, notice address here is a tuple, just like it's a tuple here. Here we've specified the tuple explicitly as self.host, self.port, which, by the way, are command line arguments provided here. Right? Arguments 2 and 3 on the command line. So, this line executes if it's a client. So that client has to send first. Well, I'll show you that when I run. So let's go back up. And so that was the callback description from line 17. Then obviously I specify the host and the port. And then of course we create the socket. And notice we're using sock dgram, which is UDP. All right, so connectionless. And then if it's a server, if it's the server, then we have to bind to that host and to the host and port. In this case, localhost and to a port, so we can wait for things to come in on it. Now, here comes the magic couple of lines. All we need, see, this is the beauty of FLTK. Everything that we've gone through right now, you've already done before. But what's new? Right here, line 24 is new. You haven't seen that before. So line 24, what it does is we're doing, so for socket file number returns the file descriptor of that socket. Okay, so I've described what file descriptors are before in a previous video. So remember 0, 1, 2, right? standard input, standard output, standard error. Those are associated with any process, okay? However, when we create a socket, we create a new file descriptor. It's usually going to be the next one up, more than likely 3. But we still have to explicitly ask and find out what the file descriptor of that socket S that we've created here on line 20 is. And that's what we're doing here. We're simply getting the file descriptor. Then, I don't think, now since I'm using this in the next line, I actually don't think we need self on this. Yeah, I don't think we do need, I'll just go, I think this should still work. So let's, because I don't think I need this to be a part of the class, because I'm just using it in the next line directly. So I'll just go FD here, and we'll just go like this. This should work too. All right, there, that looks better. So there's the file descriptor, and I got it on line 24. Now, this is the magic line. If there's any one line, I would say, that does the magic, it's this line 29. It's fl.addFD. Let's go to the FLTK documentation and take a look at what addFD does. We got to go to class here first, and it's the first one. It's an FL function, so it's way up here. And we come down here, and there it is, addFD. It says add file descriptor FD to listen to. When FD becomes ready for reading, FL wait will call the callback and then return. This is perfect for GUI programs because, as I mentioned earlier, GUI programs have an event loop that's always waiting for you to do something like click on a button or press a key. Well, in this case, what we're doing is we're adding something to that event loop where FLTK is waiting for something to happen. And what we've done is we've said, listen, if that file descriptor gets any data, then look at the code. We've said, run this callback function. Run that function if that file descriptor receives any data. What could be simpler than that? It's beautiful. What an awesome, easy way to do asynchronous network programming. It's awesome. By the way, this is a side point, okay? Look how cool this is. So it also says, under Unix, any file descriptor can be monitored. Files, devices, pipes, sockets. But due to limitations in Microsoft Windows, Win32 applications can only monitor sockets. This is part of the Unix philosophy or Linux philosophy that everything is a file. So really, we could use this. I mean, for Windows, it'll work for network programming just like Linux, but in Linux, we actually have the ability to do this also for other types of purposes, like watch a file if some data comes into a file or any other type of device. So it's much more flexible. Anyhow, so that's the magic line, number 29. Now we've told FLTK, listen, keep a lookout. Keep watching that file descriptor. If any data comes in, boom, I want you to execute which function? Self.receive data. Let's go down to that function. Here it is. Self.receive data. It's part of the class, so it's got to have self as the first argument, and it'll receive the file descriptor. Although we're not going to use FD, so at this point it's not useful. But what we are going to do is we're going to call s.receive_from, and we're just going to grab like 1K of data, which is enough. I'm not going to really type more information than 1,000 characters at a time. And so remember, receive from blocks. But the nice thing about this is that really this function's only going to be executed when and only when information arrives on that file descriptor. And remember, that file descriptor is associated with the socket S, right? That's what we figured that out on line 24 up here. So now this this returns a tuple. It returns two things. One, it returns the text, the data that we're receiving, and it tells us where did it come from. Okay, what was the address of the computer that sent it. So once we get the text, then remember what brow was our multi-browser. Okay, remember up here, brow was our multi-browser. So now what we do is we go brow.add, and so if you're wondering what .add for a multi-browser does, let's go back here, boom, boom, multi-browser, and okay, so there's no add here, but it's the same as a browser, and there it is, add. Let's click it, and it says add a new line to the end of the browser. Okay, that's it. That's so straightforward, right? So simple. So, and then of course, remember text here is going to be in binary form, and we have to decode it back into text. So that's why we're just doing the decode there. So such a simple function, 2 lines of code. Okay. Well, now that we've kind of, finished it, let's go ahead and run it. So here we go. I need a couple terminals. There they are. And so here's my first one. Now listen, when I run this, I'm going to go Python 3. Here's the name of my program. And of course, this is the server first. So I'm going to run this guy first because that's going to have to bind. And I'm going to, again, I'm on the same machine. So I'm going to use localhost, and I'm going to pick port 6666. Here we go. Boom. Okay. Here's my program. Let's put it right there. And let's now come over here and run the client program. Okay, now this one says client, so it's not going to bind. Same host, same port. Okay, and let's put it over here. All right, now if you notice here, this one says server right there, and this one says client right there. Okay, so client's got to send first, or else the server is not going to know where to send the information to. So the server will say hi. Enter. Okay, boom, now it says hi here. Perfect. The cool thing about this now is that we don't have to go back and forth and go, all right, now it's the server's turn, now it's the client's turn. This is like a real chat program. We can actually now continue to say stuff from the server, so from the client, we can say, what's up? We can say something like, yo, wake up. So notice all these things keep coming down here, and they show up as things that have been typed. They're being added to the bottom. Now, if you wanted to flip that around, that's not tough to do either. But now, of course, we can say, I'm here. Okay, now whatever was typed into the input here, as soon as I hit enter, it shows up here on the client side. Because now the server knows what the address is of the client. Okay, so specifically, this exists because we received the server received already, and so self.address exists now. So he knows. So the server knows where to send. And it is a tuple, right? So this is a tuple. And so at this point, we could continue just testing it out, and we could say something like I don't know, something like yo, or I'm here now. And so it totally works, and they can continue sending. There you go. And so this is kind of cool. Now this is like a real chat program. And it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, this is the magic line in my opinion. It's add FD, which basically allows this whole thing to work. And so my suggestion to you is give this a shot and try to make it work for you. You know, watching is not really, you can't really learn too much by watching. You learn so much more by doing. So give it a shot. Try it. You can see all my code on the screen. And I think it's a really great learning opportunity. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.